June 17th, 2025. I am the interviewer Amy Moritz with Erin Miller Maciejewski via Zoom. Erin was a standout in throwing events for Lockport High School track and field. She was an All-American in the shot put after placing fourth at the National Scholastic Indoor Championships. In 2009, she placed second in the shot put and third in the discus at the New York State High School Federation Championships, and went on to have a very successful career at the University of Buffalo, graduating in 2013. So short but sweet little intro because I want to get right to talking with you, Erin. Thanks so much. I really appreciate your time today. So tell me about a time that you first remember falling in love with sports.
Sure. Well, first, thank you so much for asking me to do this. What an honor with all the women. I've been listening to some of the interviews. Really amazing to be thought to be lumped in with them. So thank you so much, Amy. Um, some of my favorites going way back. My sister and I were always athletes, always involved in sports from a very young age. Um, Starting with competitive swimming at the YMCA, and one of my favorites, I think, I got bit with a competition bug. Um, we would have these little Friday night after practice. They'd call it Friday night at the races. Everyone would get really excited. Four individually matched people would get matched up to race, and then everybody else would pick a corner of who you thought would win the race. And then all the swimmers got a candy bar, who won or not. And whoever picked the right corner also got a candy bar. So just something really silly that Mr. Clark did for us way back when. But it was a really fun sports are fun, but sports are also competitive. And let's cheer for your teammate. That was a really good one. Young Anjo League, it was called softball. My mom was our coach just because she was a woman that loved sports and played sports back in the 70s throughout most of her life. So she volunteered and coached a group of ragtag kids, teaching us fundamentals of sports, but also rule following and being good teammates. And that was you just think back on those when you're very young with fond memories, and really grateful to have those opportunities.
Right. And it sounds like you had a lot of opportunities to play organized or have organized sports athletics from a young age.
Yeah, absolutely. Very lucky. The district we were in, the area we were in, um, soccer, the Keenan Center, really young, very, very young, right on to swimming at the YMCA, right into those softball opportunities that weren't necessarily tied to the school. They were just community that I'm sure there were way more, but that's what we participated in, my sister and I, that from before I was even in school that I could remember. So very lucky to have opportunities as young women, young girls, to have things to do, things to play, friends to meet. Yeah.
And to have that exposure and to kind of learn, like you said, like you really like the competitive side, right? So you really kind of found something that spoke to you a bit too as well.
Sure. Being with your friends is fun, but winning is fun. Working hard and having a positive outcome is fun. And those are things that sports really teach you about life, that those of us who are lucky to do it get to learn at an early age.
Sure. And now in high school, obviously later in your athletic journey here, you somehow found the throws in track and field, which I love to hear how you found that, because that is not something that when most people are going through a list of sports that come to the top of their mind, right?
Sure. I was a swimmer through middle school. High school hit, well, in middle school, softball as well. High school hit, and it was volleyball. And I decided to do indoor track because my older sister did indoor track and was a pretty good shot putter. And she did it for something to do, to be around her friends. She was a very good athlete herself, and she was a catcher in softball, to get her legs strong and stay in shape is something she did. It's like, well, she's doing it, and I don't really play basketball anymore, so I guess I'll do it. Get in shape, maybe go out for softball, keep playing softball after that. And it ended up being something I surprisingly fell in love with, even more so than my sister, who was very good and very competitive at it, and actually made the really tough decision, I think, the week before softball started, right, to tell the coach, I'm not playing for you this year. I'm actually going to stick with track. And I kind of went off from there.
Uh, what was it about? So obviously you were your sister modeled it for you, right? Yeah, my sister does it, right? So
Right.
that's a natural way to find it. But what about it do you think that you kind of fell in love with?
Um, The you versus you nature of it has always been really intriguing.
Mhm.
Um, that not instant for sure, it's not instant gratification, but you rely on yourself in track. You put the work in and hopefully you get the outcome. And even able to see that just from 12 weeks doing it indoors that freshman year of high school. Um, it was a very fun, cool, different setting that I hadn't been around before, where usually you're at a volleyball tournament all day and you're playing, 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 but kind of having to be a little mentally tougher, I think, maybe even in track, where it's you have this whole day, you're building it up, and then you have 3, hopefully 6 throws potentially. So it was just a completely different format, but what we really liked was I was always a bigger, stronger kid, and getting to use that to my advantage and having something that it really I had to work hard at it, but was pretty good at off the bat and being able to grow from that.
Sounds like you found like, oh, this is like it connected with you, right? This is the sport that suits my strengths, kind of.
Absolutely. Yep.
Now, also, at Lockport, did the girls and the boys teams? Did you guys practice together? What was that co-ed atmosphere maybe like?
Sure. We did, which was also great. I loved my volleyball teammates. They were all very close girlfriends, but track was different. It was co-ed. It was multi-age. There were seventh graders if they were good enough. There were seniors. It was really nice that even if I was starting to outpace maybe some of my older female teammates, I had male teammates that would help push me in the weight room more than I really thought at that time as a 15-year-old girl. But having a couple of my male teammates that were into that thing, football players and then shot putters and weight throwers that were like, no, put more weight on the bar. You can do this. Come on. So being able to have that mix was really nice. It was kind of you didn't have a ceiling because there was always something more you could be doing and someone else there you could be chasing.
Uh-huh. And it sounds like such a great camaraderie, like you said, like the football players and the male throwers, like no, put more weight on, like encouraging you. So it sounds like you had um experience with both your male and your female teammates from across with female teammates across the sports too.
Absolutely, yes. I just remember a few days in the weight room with one of my teammates who I was really close with, who just was doing that. Like, I'm not going to drop the bar on you. Come on, let's go. And at first, I kind of giggled at him the way he was cheering for me. And when I got up, he's like, why are you laughing? You can do this. Like, you got to try harder. Like, this isn't, yeah, you can do as much weight as we can. Come on. So it was really nice to
Uh-huh. Is it nice to? It sounds like a lot of times coaches would do this for us, but I think it's also very special when other teammates are doing it for you, where like they see it in you, and you're like, and so that they kind of make you see it and pull it out of you too. Did you feel that?
Absolutely. It's different, especially when you're a teenager to hear it from your peers.
Mm.
And I was a well-behaved rule follower, but it's just different to hear it from your peers than from the person who's supposed to be telling you that, your coach. I remember some of these teammates were the first ones that told other people that may have been messing around at practice or making a joke potentially about me if I was taking it seriously. And I remember he just once was like, "She's gonna go Division 1. What are you laughing at?" And just hearing that from some of our teammates was it was really nice.
Yeah, that is great support to have. Was
Absolutely.
there was there a point when, like you said, like you found like, okay, this might be my strength. Was there a point when you're like, wait, I could really be good at this? Like, do you remember? Was there a moment or a season that kind of clicked for you?
In high school, maybe I made it to sectionals outdoor. I wasn't really ranked very high or anything. Um, but by the time I was a sophomore and got more serious about track, um, the reigning state record holder in the shot put, a Penn State all-time top thrower, Melissa Kursdorfer was Bauer now married, was one of my very close became one of my very close friends, but I'll never forget at the sectional state qualifier meet indoor my sophomore year. She came up to me. I was like, "I really hope you throw well today. I want to go to states with you." I was like, "She does? Me?" So that was another kind of like I like to be intrinsically motivated, but to hear from other people, especially at a younger age, "Oh, okay. She sees something in me. She wants me to be the one that's going to states with her. She's already so good." So that was one of them that kind of helped it click, actually making the state meet that year. And then making the state meet and doing okay, but from there was like, "Oh, I am good with these girls in the state," and really being able to put that effort in after and really work even harder towards it after.
You mentioned that you like to be intrinsically motivated, but is there something also, I mean, I think back to, like, when you're a teenager and you're kind of finding your way and doing something that is maybe outside, I mean, out, not that sports were outside, but being a thrower and being a female that's powerful, using your strength is sort of outside like that, what we consider that athletic norm for women.
Yeah.
So, is it something, maybe not motivating and maybe validating is too strong of a word, but something that when you're hearing those people say, you're like, it kind of helps you in that way?
It does. I was listening to, Stacy Schroeder Watt's interview, and she was so many years ahead of us and such a behemoth that we heard about for so long. But to hear her saying what she was kind of going through and feeling in the '90s versus even me for the early 2000s, I mean, a lot has changed in a positive way, but you're still a teenage girl at a school with hundreds, if not thousands, of other teenage girls, and it is out of the norm. It is something a little different. I wasn't playing basketball anymore like I did in middle school. I wasn't playing one of the cooler sports. So being able to be a little stronger, I'm very lucky that I was raised where we were strong women in my family. We were good athletes. We were going to try hard at whatever we wanted to sign up and do, and we were going to give it our all and do the best. So I think a lot of those things culminated to growing to be a little more confident in it, and from there, it just kind of snowballs.
Right. Your What year were you All American? What was that?
That was it was either depending on when the state meet was, it was 2009, uh,
Okay.
indoor. I had recently signed, I believe, my national letter to go to UB. Uh,
Okay.
had qualified for the state meet or had qualified for the national meet for a few years, but that senior year, I'd qualified and knew I was ranked well within the country and had prepared well and had been competing well. So that was the year we we as in my parents and I, we decided to go. And
Mhm.
yeah, so that was senior year.
That
And
was your senior year. Okay.
it was a really great day.
Yeah, obviously a really great day. Kind of take me through that and that experience, because I can't imagine how amazing and like all of the things that day had to be.
Sure, I had been lucky. I think we might touch on it a bit later too, but I had been really lucky to have this outside of my own school training partner, Melissa, that I mentioned before, who was an absolute giant in the sport in not only the section, but the state and the country, breaking records from the time she was a young teenager, was so gracious and so kind to take me in as a friend and a training partner. And of course, we pushed each other, um, but we're able to be these friends and supports for each other in that kind of our weird niche sport where we were both these
Mhm.
powerful young women in this odd, powerful sport. So being able to train with her from that time she came up to me my sophomore year to say, I really hope you make it to states up through my senior year, her junior year, where we were training together a lot over the summers. I was going to her school to practice quite often with her. So leading up to it, just I was always kind of, I guess, chasing Melissa, but what a great experience it was for me to have somebody to chase because it's pretty easy in track to have a year where maybe somebody else or maybe the competition isn't as good as it was the years before. Maybe there's a little lull. So I throw this, so I'm actually doing pretty well. But having people like Stacy from 10 years prior doing it so much better than we were, on top of having Melissa there, made me really, you're not that great. Keep pushing. Like you're not, yeah, you might be good for your school, but that's not really, you've got this person here who can do it. Why can't you? So having her as the training partner kind of leading up to that really helped. Always having the top competition in the country I was competing against every single weekend. So that really helped. But then seeing some of the other top throwers were actually from New York State. So I was seeing them again, which was actually pretty nice. But leading up to it, just working really hard, knowing that that was a major goal. Um, Knowing that this is what I was going to go on and do for hopefully at least the next 4 years if I stayed healthy. Um, But having her there, having some support there that I had trained with for so long did really help. But in track, it does all come down to you. So I'm still very proud of young me for being able to kind of keep a level head at that meet and be able to do what you've been training for. I was also blessed that senior year to have Sarah Vance, who was a Lockport legend and then on to being a UB legend and school record holder, was teaching in the district and was my coach. So between having a great training partner, having that coach, I was really very, very lucky and very grateful for the way everything came together that year.
Yeah. Since you brought up Melissa and Sarah, you also brought up Stacy and Brittany Pryor too, right? Is another name. Um, what a wealth of like athletes in the throws.
Right.
So what like how how much did you know? Did you learn about the people who kind of came before you? And how impactful was that to have that comp either people to look up to or competition coaching of other women who have been successful in this area?
Sure. You know about Stacy, she still owns the state record in the discus, and at the time she did in the shot put. These numbers that seemed so unattainable, so incredible. Hearing about it, I through high school would go to the University of Buffalo track and field camps over the summer and over the winters. And my coach, who ended up being my college coach, had also had a hand in helping Stacy. So you just hear about this almost mythical figure that you're always kind of reaching towards, which is how great to have. As far as Brittany was just, she went on to be I don't want to get it wrong, but a multiple time NCAA All American in every event that she threw. I was actually lucky not until college, but she was an assistant coach of mine in college. So these Western New York legends all kind of had a hand in shaping me to be the athlete I was. I think that's something powerful about women's sports where I have the knowledge, I'm going to share it. Like, yep, I've reached my peak and now it's time to help someone else because why wouldn't we? Same thing with Sarah Vance through high school. She would give me advice before that, but when she officially became my coach, what I was it was like Christmas Day, being able to have someone who knew it, who really knew it to help navigate not only the throws but the college process, and helping with that was incredible. And then having Melissa as a training partner and a friend, kind of going through it concurrently with her. They've all kind of had a hand, whether they knew it or not. Most of them directly. So very, very, I don't know if lucky is a strong enough word, but um, what a lineage, I guess, there has been and hopefully continues to be.
Yeah, and do you think, part of it is like you mentioned, like the one of the powerful things for women's sports is the giving back and the helping pull other people up and coach or compete with them. And so that, you're kind of that friendly competition has is that part of what has made has made this little I mean, it's incredible to me the talent and the throws that have come out of this region.
It is amazing. I would like to think so. There's a few, I'm going to call them kids. They're young married women now at this point, but kids who came up going to the UB throws camp from Western New York the years that I was at UB that we made a very concerted effort to kind of help them know what they had and help them know the talent they had, who did eventually end up going to UB and now are also on the all-time lists there. Just this Western New York kind of powerhouse we have. But I love the idea of we have it, why wouldn't we share it? And I think I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it just really seems like it's kind of trickled its way down and only benefited the Western New York community and hopefully beyond.
I'll take a little turn here before I want to talk about UB. You're a All-American, high school All-American national indoor meet, finished fourth in the country, right? Like that's a pretty darn big deal. I'm wondering how you felt about media attention, media coverage. Like, did you feel that you got recognition that you deserved, or what was that like for you?
Um, it, to a point, we did have our own media in our hometown. To a point, it as we've been talking about, it wasn't a big, well-known sport. It wasn't
Mhm.
basketball. It wasn't football. Um, it is an individual sport when it really comes down to it, and competing at the national meet
Mhm.
is well beyond when the team itself is really competing, um, to a point potentially, but it did feel at the time like there could have been more, like it could have been better celebrated. I did have a moment where prior to leaving for the meet, some higher ups in the athletics department reminded me that it is not a school sanctioned event and I will not, cannot go and compete in our school's uniform or under our school's name. And if I were to do that, I would no longer be welcome. I would no longer be, um, I'd be dismissed from further sports at the school. Um, so I did have that moment leading up to the national meet that I was very, very blessed that I had a family that was able to support me to get me to the meet.
Mhm.
That's always stuck with me a little, especially now, which absolutely unbelievable. I love track and field and I love track and field getting better. There's a group of high school athletes that have currently qualified for the national meet, and there are active
Mhm.
efforts to be organized fundraising for it currently, which those kids deserve nothing but that and more. But hopefully it's because things have changed for the better, but it is a pretty big dichotomy that I've noticed in the time
Yes,
that
that's yeah, that, know that or realize that not only there's a part of me that understands, okay, we can't afford to send you,
Mhm,
but to then not allow you to compete at, under your high school name, is, um, confusing on its surface. I don't know what's be underneath that, but it's definitely, it had to be so disappointing, for you too. This is great, a great opportunity for you, and a little bit disappointing with how they treated that.
correct. So that
Yeah.
has stuck with me. I like to think I'm very honored in the time since I've been inducted into my high school's Athletics Hall of Fame. Regardless, I think female athletes, past, present, hopefully not future, can all agree we should be getting more. We should be getting our flowers a little bit more than we do. But I think the tide is turning and I hope it stays that way. Um, but it always seems like it could have been better, but you know what? I wouldn't give up anything for the world. It didn't change the accomplishments that I or any other female athlete out there that probably feels the same
Mhm.
has gotten. Another beautiful thing about sports is it's in that book, it's in that record book, it's in there, especially track. Like that mark is that mark, and that's where it is forever.
And
So that's a nice thing that I
that's
really love about track and sports.
yes, yeah, it's always there, right? It doesn't the record may be broken, but your mark, what you did, doesn't leave.
Right.
Well, before you even went there, you said you signed with UB. So tell me about the process, the recruiting process, and what that was like for you, and then how you decided on UB.
Sure. Around junior year, maybe is when like after that, I went to States my sophomore year. Around junior year, I was starting to get some letters from some schools that maybe I hadn't heard of, but keeping them all very exciting when I wasn't. I got into track, never anticipating that, not really having a lot of friends that were getting recruited for sports, not really knowing what to expect. So just kind of getting the letters. Remember, it would get to a point where I'd get some from certain schools and I would look up the school record and kind of think, that's too close to what I'm doing now. So that seems like a nice school, but I don't think so. I don't think I want to go do that because I might be better than that by next year. And I want to go somewhere that's going to make me even better. Um, I got recruited to a few of the Ivy Leagues, but they don't give athletic funds and they are quite expensive schools. And I knew I wanted to be in the health sciences, so that did help me narrow it down. Um, UB, it was just such a perfect fit. They were always right there, but they weren't just right there. They were this group of people who may have been pretty good in high school, but had something that our coach there, Coach Garnham, could see, knew. Like, we can polish this. You don't have to be the best one in the country. You don't have to be breaking records, national records as a high school in order to come to my school. You've got the strength, you've got the will, you've got the grades, you've got these things that we can get you stronger. We can get you better at this. And I just really loved that about UB. Their records were already so high. They had this group of people that I had the pleasure of getting to know through going to their camps the last couple of years I was in high school. They do camps over winter break, camps over the summer. Um, so I kind of knew either from Western New York that ended up going to UB or people that were already there. I ended up knowing who some of my teammates potentially could be and how they worked. I ended up knowing the coach and how he kind of coached from going to these camps. So it kind of, I took a few visits, I made some phone calls, but I think in the back of my head, it was always, I knew it was always going to be UB.
You mentioned Coach Garnham, and he is certainly a legend at UB and a legend in the field events. I'm just wondering what it was like to train and to compete under him.
Um, It was great because, like I said, I mean, and even I forgot to mention, I did get a handwritten letter from the Western New York Greater Buffalo Sports Hall of Fame inductee, Vicki Mitchell, as well, who's the women's head coach. And that meant so much to me. I still have it. I moved recently, I found it. So getting like handwritten cards from a head coach and this woman who was known so well in track and field also meant a lot. Um,
Mhm.
Forgot to mention that, but that special little touch that always meant a lot to me. Um, but training for Coach Garnham, just legend from having high school athletes. He's got so many of his high school athletes. He's got one he trained in high school that went on to be a Olympic gold medalist. Just knowing what he could take from somebody like Sarah Vance, who was my high school coach and had the school records at the time at UB and at Lockport that I ended up breaking, and she helped me do it. So when he took Sarah's numbers from how she started at UB to how she ended up and how far she was throwing and how many times she went to nationals. So being able to learn from him, but what was really special about the UB, two really special things about my collegiate program were his philosophy was if I can leave tomorrow and you guys are able to coach each other because you understand it and you become good coaches, that means I've done my job. So it was really nice. So it did kind of become a big brother, little sister thing sometimes where we were helping each other a lot because of the way he was coaching. That's what he wanted. He was able to teach us the fundamentals enough that we could pass it along. So there was that. And there was also our incredible strength program. We had this hidden gem at UB, some of the best strength and conditioning coaches in the nation. We're right in our own backyard. The late Paul Childress was my first strength and conditioning coach, and he was the also the epitome of, yeah, you're a woman, but you better be strong. Like it's not you're strong for a girl. It was very much a put more weight on the bar. You are a high level track and field athlete, power sport athlete, explosive athlete. You better be stronger. So let's get to it. Never having a limit on how strong we should be and having such a great program between Paul and then who went on to be my next strength coach, Nate Harvey, was the other really special piece that I think gets missed a lot in collegiate programs that we really had at UB. I think that really helped propel our little program up into the national spotlight frequently.
You bring up such a great point because people think about the competition, they think about the practice, like the technique practice, right? So whether it's basketball, you're running plays, whether it's practicing like your throws and practicing your technique, but we forget about that strength and conditioning piece, I think, so often, and how that elevates. Obviously for you, that goes back to high school for you, where you were strength training and in the weight room. Was that something at the time, aside from, was that common for female athletes? Obviously for throwers, I think it would be, right? Because you're trying to create your
Yeah,
power. But at the time, what was the philosophy or the attitude kind of maybe around the weight room in general?
I think in the recent years it's switched more than it ever has. And maybe for female
Yeah.
athletes, it's always been a little bit more top of mind, top of
Okay.
priority. But
Hmm.
as far as it being the popular thing to do, it's,
Right.
you still hear often, I want to go to the gym, but I don't want to get bulky, or I want to go to the gym, but I'm intimidated because all the guys are in there. Female athletes, hopefully, we have that little leg up and can hopefully help other people feel empowered to do that. But speaking from my personal experience, being lucky to have those couple high school friends that I trained with in the weight room, that honestly, looking back on it, I could and should have been training harder, but I was still a teenage girl, I knew I was strong and I was strong for what I was, but when I really got to college and got training with my teammates there, they really did not care who was male, who was female. We didn't separate our groups. Girls lift at this time, boys lift at this time. It's let's go, let's keep up. You're up.
Mhm,
Let's get going. So I think that really helped changed my mindset, but I do remember our strength coaches and some of the coaches even at UB having a talk with some of the female teams. You got to strain. You've got to try harder. This is important. You're going to get better. You're going to jump higher. You're going to get hurt less. You really need to take this aspect seriously and you really need to push yourself a little bit more in here. So
mhm,
hopefully change of attitudes, change the science being more readily available, just the examples that are out there of people who train hard in the weight room and remain healthy are more out there now to make it less of a gendered thing and more of a get better at sports thing.
yeah, get better at sports, build your body better, right? And
Right.
all of that.
Right.
Um, what was the how was the adjustment to the competition when you went from high school to college?
I remember calling my boyfriend at the time, now husband, who was my teammate,
Mhm.
who didn't compete indoors because he was a javelin thrower, crying after my first meet because it wasn't what I expected of myself. And in my head, it's not what people are expecting of me. I didn't do poorly, but it wasn't what I was supposed to do. So I thought, and I just remember he and some of my teammates and even my coach kind of talking me back down that this is your first college meet. You've got nerves. We've been training really, really hard. You're not going to throw your best every meet. Also, you're not going to be the best at every meet. We're at a mid major going to these big meets. So kind of take your moment, but then get your head on straight. It wasn't like I said, it wasn't a bad meet at all, but I just remember I didn't do as well as I thought I was going to do. And I remember a couple people just telling me like, well, too bad. You've got 8 more meets this indoor season. Like conference championships are 2 months from now. So it's fine. Learn from it and let's get to work for next week's meet, which was I really need that in general. That's how I like to operate. So that was a really it was nice. I never felt dismissed, but I didn't feel like anybody ever let me wallow, which is good to have.
That's really good, and that can be really, really rare to, like, have people like, "I'm gonna let you have your feelings, but you're not gonna stay down there, we
Right.
have another thing to do."
Right.
Yeah.
Coach Garnham's big thing that we all kind of lived by as well was it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And track can be a very long season, especially indoor into outdoor. Every meet isn't going to be your best meet, and that's something really important to learn with an individual sport like that. You kind of know that when you play team sports, maybe, but it's so measured and so just black and white in track and field. But every meet is not going to be your meet. Let's worry about training hard and peaking for when we need to peak and getting our head on straight for when it really matters. So
Yeah,
that kind
yeah,
of was
I was
a
gonna ask you about peaking. I was gonna ask you about peaking because that's I think in that's we talk about that in team sports, but I think it's really much more like in track and field or swimming, like, those are not the other meets aren't important, but you wanna be at your best at
mhm,
conference championships or, at certain points in the season as opposed to throwing great the second week of the season necessarily.
right.
Was that different in college than in high school?
Yes, I think there was more of I think for a lot of reasons, maybe for me saying yes so emphatically, for me,
Mhm.
being in high school and yes, having the state and eventual national champion at most of my meets on the weekends kind of helped me know like you're not the best thing out there. But at most of our smaller meets, the I was the league champion for all of the years I was there besides my freshman year. So kind of having that, even if you have a bad day, it's still kind of going to be a good day. You're still going to score the points you need to score. You're still going to maybe get a patch for your varsity jacket kind of thing. So getting to college, you are a little fish in a big pond, which is great, which is great about sports. Um, so yeah, learning to peak at the right time and learning to trust the process as a very
Mhm.
type A, very strong opinioned person, needing to know better and learn better and listen to some other people was a lesson that I also really needed. Um, and I'm glad I trusted them and listen to my strength coach, listen to my coach, listen to my teammates that it is kind of in trust too. Like, yeah, you're probably not going to throw a personal best today. We did max effort squats 2 days ago because it's the beginning of the season. So kind of taking those lessons too, that you don't know everything, listen to the people who do and start to trust them is easier said than done.
Yes, that's a process. Everything's a process, right?
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, the weight room and strength training is something that you loved because you did powerlifting after college, right? Is that
Yep.
after that?
Yes. So I competed in track 4 years straight through. I didn't take a red shirt. I had gotten into my master's program. I'm an occupational therapist now, so I'd gotten into occupational therapy school at UB. Um, so I was done with track, but I was done with track. What do I do now? I was pretty good in the weight room, and all of my friends and all these people I were teammates with are still doing it. The program we were doing can transfer almost exactly right over. So while I was still a UB student, they were gracious enough to let me keep going to the weight room and training with them and using their program um, to get into powerlifting. So I kind of just I took some time off for myself and went a little crazy, and then picked up powerlifting just for a little bit there while I was doing grad school. It kind of just helped get my mind off of the stress of that graduate program and helped me be around things that I knew and thought I was pretty good at. So it was a nice mental switch, but it was also a nice outlet to use some of my natural abilities, but also these things I had worked on year round, mind, body, and soul for the last 4 years leading up to that. So it was a really nice outlet and a nice transition to that afterward.
I was gonna say, was it a good transition too? Because you've been an athlete your entire life, and now college is, your undergrad is done, your college eligibility is done, and it's hard to be like, well, yeah, you're like, now what do I do? So did it also help you, obviously helped you mentally, like you said, with the stresses, did it also help you mentally transition out of into a different kind of stage where athletics were in your life?
It did. It was having track be over. I mean, people talk about it time and time again. It's a very much a wait. Now it is actually over. I've been working in some capacity towards this my entire life, being a competitive athlete, loving sports, loving to compete. And it all accumulated to this college career where I was fairly successful. And then just I took my last throw and was like, well, okay, I guess I got to go finish up my grad school classes, but just it really kicking in. It is a very interesting, a lot of people write about it. A lot of athletes talk about it, ones who have competed at even higher levels than I ever have or would. Um, so it was a very nice outlet to continuing to be athletic and be competitive in something that was very similar and very near and dear to my heart. So it was a very good transition that way.
That's great. Do you have a favorite memory from competing?
I would like to say senior year of high school, doing well at that national meet was I was so proud of myself because it's easy to go to a big meet and not have the best day. It's such a technical sport, but be making all of the effort of getting there and actually doing well was wonderful. Beyond that, that outdoor season, I was already signed. I was already going to college for track, but uh, Section 6 girls, we went 1 and 2 in the state, and one of the other top throwers in the country was in the state. So I was finally able to was finally able to beat her, and Melissa and I went 1-2 in the state, which was just a great way to cap off a high school career. Um, and then I guess college, that's not just one, but one of the times I was like, oh, I love this. Freshman year training in the weight room, all of the guys, all of the girls, we were deadlifting, and I was going to put like a couple smaller weights on the bar. And one of my male teammates looked at me and was like, what are you putting tens on for? Just put 25s on. Do it or do it right or don't do it at all. So I did and was able to lift this weight where people kind of turned and were like, it was a nice mental jump for me that I still remember that, oh, I can do this and I should be doing this. So remembering that was a big one for me of just how cool sports are, being able to
Yeah,
compete against other people and yourself.
I love that. Like that moment that it clicks. Oh wait, yes,
I can and should be
I
doing that.
can and
Right.
should be doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, what does you what does Title IX mean to you?
Oh my gosh. Um, having parents who are athletic and one coming up and competing in sports in high school, pre-Title IX and right around Title IX and getting to benefit from that, was somebody who supported my sister and I all through our athletic careers then with all of these opportunities that may have not been afforded to her or the people before her. Um, I don't want it to be cliche, it just means so much. What an important thing to guarantee equity between men and women's sports. And I think it's showing now the more I think people it shows how much we still need it, but how much we are benefiting from it and how important women's sports are to have the opportunities that I had in kind of such a niche, different sport. I'm just having trouble honestly putting it into words to be able to almost be guaranteed at least the opportunity. Sports are great because nothing's guaranteed, but being guaranteed the access, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. And knowing that young girls and young women out there are going to be that it's we'll keep fighting for it, that will be guaranteed that. Hopefully the road that athletes before me paved, hopefully I was able to help level that road out a little bit, make it even smoother, and that it will just continue and continue on from there.
Flows great into the last question, which is what would you want that next generation of girls to know about girls and women's sports in Western New York?
Yeah. How lucky they are to be in an area that does have so many opportunities, smaller schools, bigger schools, that has some legends of sports coming out of it, that have come out of it, um, to take advantage of every opportunity that they do have. Whether you think it might be for you or not, take advantage. I'm hoping that young women today are able to be less self-conscious that maybe I was, people my age were, to be able to just embrace those opportunities that might seem different right now or might not seem to be exactly what you thought you would be doing, but being able to do it wholeheartedly is really important. And reaching out, I was so lucky to have a high school coach my senior year who was a legend in her own right in the sport, to have somebody that had the state record coming right from my little league to be looking up to have through college, to have another legend of the sport, multi-time All-American donating her time to come out and help the next generation. So we want to keep doing that. So reach out for the opportunity. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to do it. Don't be afraid to try. You're not going to look silly. Try. Try really hard because you might be surprised. So I think that's what I would like to pass down.